You are watching Pacific Waves Television, USA, a place of nourishment.
And so I'm going to go get a projector because he wants to use a PowerPoint, and he's going to explain more about what he does.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry I was late. I was actually sitting out in the lobby. I thought you were doing something in here, so I didn't want to interrupt. So I apologize for my tardiness, but I'm very happy to be here. As he said, I work at Western State with Eunice, and we both do quality management there. My role is actually as a research investigator, and what I do is I monitor all research that comes into the hospital. It could be graduate students who want to do their dissertation on a psychology topic. It could be a social worker finishing their master's and they just need clinical work. It could be the state government who is looking at specific metrics. It could be assaults. It could be treatment planning or anything like that, so that they can make reports that go to the legislator. It could be basically a research entity that does research nationwide. And so we make sure that the procedures, we have policies in place that could be at a state level or even federal regulations, and we make sure all of those guidelines are followed. That way we protect all of the patients because they're actually a vulnerable population. And so we want to make sure we don't tread on their rights. We keep their confidentiality and their privacy in order. That way everybody has a good standard of what's going on with research there. While he's doing that, let me just give a quick background. I had my PhD in health communication. Basically, that means that we create interventions to promote good behaviors or bad behaviors when it comes to your health. So lots of programs I've worked on, like USDA, nationwide. I've worked at university programs and research laboratories. These kind of programs would be to stop smoking at a college level, to stop using chewing tobacco, to prevent obesity in a family situation, to culturally adapt obesity programs, because American programs are not necessarily effective on different groups of individuals based off of cultures or religions. And so we have to translate all of that stuff. My main focus was always on obesity prevention. My dissertation looked at people who were over 65 and living in assisted facilities and how to prevent obesity there. By using media techniques, I taught them how to look at food advertisements and drink advertisements and see how the advertisers are trying to coerce them down a path into buying that McDonald's hamburger. You get 2, buy 1, get 1 for free, you know. We have to teach people that, whoa, that's a great deal, but health-wise, that's not good for your health, right? It's the same with all of the high fructose corn syrups, your portioning, all of that stuff. This population of people who are over 65 didn't necessarily have the training for that. They still thought we're on the food pyramid, and we're actually not using the food pyramid for over 20 years. So they were just unaware of what the current standards are for your health. And so with all of that, I taught them how to address what can be seen on the media and make better, healthier choices. I'm going to put my stuff in here because I'm chatty. Other than that, Eunice wants to take a moment and introduce the staff. So if you come on up here, and then we'll begin with our presentation. I'm going to stand on right.
Thank you so much. I usually call you Kit, but for this forum, I'll call you Dr. Kit.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have our faculty members here, and I would kindly request them to stand up. The school is theological school, but the most important thing for us is that even when we are in the theological side, we can do research. Yeah. So faculty members, please, if you can stand up and use yourself and what area that you are doing. I don't know exactly if you want them to face the camera or to come in front. Okay, please come.
Whoever will be talking.
Is it afternoon now? Good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon.
Praise the Lord.
Amen.
I say praise the Lord.
Amen.
All right. My name's Pastor Stephen Ibabu, and I am the chaplain of the college. Thank you.
Please say your area of teaching.
All right, I'm Pastor Jeff. I'm the chaplain of the seminary, and when I'm teaching theology.
I'm Ralph Rittenhouse, and I'm teaching disciple making.
Praise the Lord.
Amen.
Yes, my name is Andrew Muthemba, and I'm a dean of theology.
Praise the Lord.
Amen.
Peter Lewa. I'm teaching research methods, but my area is strategic management.
I'm Peter Ndongo, teaching counseling in the Hand of Counseling departments.
Dr. Suzanne Shoemaker, and I specialize mainly in church history, but now I am also teaching the history of Israel's song from Adam to today, which is the history of worship.
I'm Dr. Joe Karogi. I teach counseling and psychology.
Dr. Kate, you see the faculty members we have, and I can read your mind on the research areas that we need to specialize in.
Yep.
Thank you, faculty members. Have a seat.
Yes.
You're not a faculty member, you didn't go into the video.
It's okay.
Eunice, you should introduce yourself.
Oh, I should
You should.
introduce myself.
Yeah.
Kate knows me as Eunice.
Right.
Kate,
But you're
apart from doing what we do at Western, I teach here. I'm the Dean of Curriculum. My main focus is on counseling and research. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me today. It's lovely to meet all of you. Great. So the way that I thought I would handle this is start off with just some basics, fundamental basics about human subject research, and then we'll move into some ethics. I'll give you guys a list of resources, and I'm going to provide my slides so that because I embedded the links so you can just click on them. And then I thought we'd have a discussion. And that's where I really wanted to get to the nuts and bolts of where we can apply research to your individual topics and use human subjects if you wanted to. Because not all research involves human subjects. Anyone who has a dissertation or has a PhD or a master's knows some people like to do literature reviews and look at all of the written word that concerns a specific topic. And you can get your dissertation that way as well. It just depends on the requirements of your program. The program I was in is very heavily quantitative, which means you have to run statistical analysis, you have to collect data, you have to do an experiment. But that's not always the case based off of what your program or interest of studies are. As I said, we're just going to be talking about research fundamentals. We're going to talk a little bit about what the difference between research and quality improvement. And actually, I'm going to use the term quality management. And when I say quality management, what I'm talking about is quality improvement, quality assessment, or performance improvement. It's all basically a way to ascertain if things are being done correctly. Then we're going to talk about the research process, like how do I even do a research project from start all the way to finish. Then we'll discuss the difference between quantitative and qualitative data. I'll give you a little bit on research methodology and a little bit on statistics. Just because every single one of these topics can be a full semester seminar. So I just want to give you the high level stuff like you've never heard anything about research ever in your whole entire life, and then we can get into more detailed nuts and bolts during the discussion if you like. Then we'll move into research ethics. These are all very standardized across the entire world. Because of problems and issues we've had with research in the past, we have set a whole bunch of rules and procedures in the entire world in order to prevent those things from happening again. So we'll talk about what are ethics, why are they important. We need to assess risk when we talk about ethics and conflicts of interest. We also have to talk about informed consent, privacy, and confidentiality. All of these things are extremely important when it comes to research ethics. The last thing I'll give you and talk about resources so you have a list of where you can start when you do start doing your own research projects. So, research fundamentals. First, let's just give some basic definitions. What is research? Well, research is a systematic investigation, including development, testing, and evaluation that are designed to develop or contribute to generalizable knowledge. What does that mean? That means that systematic. There are rules in place. You have to follow these procedures. You have to do these in this specific way in order to get your outcome the appropriate way. In order to development, that means when you're developing your research, when you test, which is collecting data, and when you evaluate. So after your research is finished, you need to go back and look to make sure that everything was done correctly. And generalizable knowledge, that's the whole goal of research. We want to know why the sky is blue. How did we figure out that it's light refracting off of water? Research people looked at light refraction and water just evaporation in the atmosphere and stuff. And that's how we got to it. So generalize, and then we just believe that, right? We're all like, yes, the sky is blue because light refracts off of water and the air. The same with rainbows. Rainbows occur because light refracts off of water in the air. And that's what generalizable knowledge is. We take that as the capital T truth. Like your doctor tells you your heart rate is too high. He gives you a medicine. That's capital T truth. You kind of just believe him because of the research that's done and all of his experience, right? But that doesn't mean because of all these rules and stuff that you shouldn't be critical about research. You shouldn't just blindly accept what you read in the news and the news says, according to new study results, we find this. You have to be able to, just like media, look at it and be critical of it and understand if they're misleading you or if they're not, if they're actually being very transparent. So you need to be what's called research literate, just like media literate. You have to just not blindly consume everything that comes to you. On the other hand, quality improvement is used, it's like a framework, but it's systematic as well. But what you're doing is you are improving care by standardizing processes. That way you can reduce variance, which means changes. You just want to make everything apply the same across all people without a whole bunch of changes to achieve predictable results and improve outcomes for patients, healthcare systems, organizations. It could be a regular like marketing firm. So basically what you do is you have policies and procedures in place, and you occasionally want to look at your data to make sure that those policies are continuing to give you the same results like you're supposed to. So it's mostly a lot of relevant in healthcare systems because you're treating patients. You want the outcomes for this patient A and patient B to be the same because you use the same nursing procedures on both of those. So you should expect that both of those patients should have the same outcome based off of those procedures. So they're not separate either. They are actually a Venn diagram, which I show down there, and they overlap one another. Research and quality improvement go hand in hand because they're both systematic and we're looking at the whole entire process. But there's also a subset where people do research on quality improvement. Like, how did this procedure actually work and what are your opinions of that procedure to make it work? A little bit more into research versus quality improvement. They all have a different impetus, if you will. So you can see this is on the left side here. The purpose of research is to contribute to generalizable knowledge, right? But the purpose of quality improvement is to look at those processes and apply and see if they follow a standard, like the national standard or a societal standard or even any kind of procedural standard. You want to make sure they follow that and they are getting the same results as those standards. I'm not going to go through each one of these. I'll give you that on your own time. But some of the other important things that are on there are risk when it comes to human subjects. You can put a risk on the human subject, even if it's a survey from marshals, like how was your day, how was the people who helped you, was it fast, and that can actually cause psychological distress for some people. That can make people not want to give their personal information, like their zip code or anything out like that. So there is some risk inherently in all research, but on the other side, quality improvement, there really isn't risk because you're not affecting the individual patient, you're affecting the system that is affecting the patient. And so that's why there's not as much risk there. Analysis is another huge difference. When it comes to research, you're usually using statistical analyses. You're doing procedurals to disprove your hypothesis or your research question, technically. When it comes to quality improvement, you're looking at these standards and you're comparing your results to them to make sure that they're all the same and copacetic together. Usually you share your results like through publication when it comes to research, and that can take years sometimes. But with quality improvement, it's almost instantaneous. You notice immediately that something is wrong with the number of medications that you're giving someone, and you see it at the end of the month. You tell everybody there's something wrong with you delivering this insulin this month, and everybody's now looking at it to figure out what the issue is, and within another couple weeks they have most likely identified the issue, have solved the issue, and are now back on track. So those are almost immediate whenever that stuff happens. So switching gears to the research process. Research, do you just mean Google? I mean, we all do that, right? Just type in a few keywords into Google and see what pops up, you know. Most of it's going to be news stories. Most of it's going to be partisan information that's directed by someone, because all media is actually a format. It's used by those companies to sway your opinions, to make you believe this or believe that. All media has an intent. It has a purpose. They're not just showing you advertisements of food just to fill the airwaves. They want you to buy that food. They want you to believe this. So you have to be critical of the media. So research, when you say, I'm going to do research, I'm going to research that this weekend. Why do people not believe in climate change? I'm going to research that, and you're using Google. That's technically not researching. You're just actually looking at other people's opinions and seeing if that fits your opinion or if it doesn't. So when it comes to the research process, like I said, it is systematic. My voice is a little bit hoarse, sorry. So first you have to identify the problem or ask yourself the question and realize that when you're looking for that problem or that question, that's going to be the whole entire purpose of your research, is answering that one single question. And those are usually hypotheses, right? The informed guess, an educated guess is what we call it from a little kid, or when I was a little kid, we always called hypotheses educated guess, right? And so you would be like, why is the sky blue? I don't know. Let's do some research into that. So now you have your question, and you need to do the research into it. Professionally, we call that a literature review, which means the literature review is all generalizable knowledge that we know about the sky being blue is all somewhere. Someone's done some research for it. You just have to comb through and find out where all that information is. It's not on Google easily sometimes. I'll give you a list of where you can find scientific peer-reviewed articles, and you can use those. And so those will be helpful when you try to answer your question, why is the sky blue? But you have to go through that so that you can find out if the answer is already known. We will say we know the sky is blue because of this, so the answer is already known. So that can't be your research. research question anymore. That can't be your hypothesis because it's already answered. Your goal of research is to answer the unanswered questions. So we're going to say, why is the sky blue today but not yesterday? Because of cloud cover, right? Or whatever the case may be. So now you have to like readjust your research question based off of that literature review to find the gaps. We call it finding the gaps in the literature. And that's where you supposedly do your dissertation on, or you write your journal articles. And then so after you do that literature review, you find some information that the sky is blue for this reasons and these reasons it's not blue on these days. But so now what you want to do is develop research questions. And that would be something along the lines, if the temperature outside is above 85 degrees and there is a storm coming in, would the clouds or the sky be blue? You see how specific you're getting now with these questions? You're trying to basically like winnow yourself down so you're at the very, very most precise that you can possibly be to answer these questions. So now you have great questions, you know what you need to do, but you now have to design your project. You have to design your research. Could be a survey. Say you're interested in psychology and what people's beliefs are and their attitudes towards different topics. That might be best to get at using a survey. It might be best to do an in-depth interview where you sit down in front of one person, you videotape it, and you sit for 2 hours and ask them their thoughts and their beliefs, their experiences, and you do that with dozens and dozens of people. And then now you combine all that information together and you would have like, these are what these group of people believe about culture, religion, and how it all interacts. It could be you could get to your answer by just looking through all of the literature. You can just look at it's called a literature review, the same, and you would just go through all of the literature and just give a summation of it. It's a new topic. We don't know very much about AI right now, right? So there's not a lot of research on AI. So most of what you will find published on AI is people who have gone through all of the known information and summed it up nicely in this nice, cute little package that you can be used for researchers. We also call these meta-analyses. Say that they're doing anti-smoking programs. And they've been doing anti-smoking programs since the 1940s. Let me tell you, every state university has a program. Every single health department in the United States has a program. They'll apply different procedures to get these kids to quit smoking. They did it from this perspective and this perspective and this perspective, and these are the results they got. The meta-analysis will tell everybody that. They will say, 45 studies used this type of procedure to get this result. It was not that effective. 163 research projects used this procedure and found mediocre results. But only 21 who got positive results did this procedure. That informs you now on which procedure you should do. If you can't get results using this procedure, don't waste your time and do that. You don't want to reaffirm that it's not going to work. You want to do the innovative way to actually get kids to quit smoking. So you're going to try to follow those ones over here that show better results and then make minor tweaks to it. I'll go into a little bit more when I have a specific slide for the different methodologies that I'll talk about. After you figure your methodology, basically now you have to figure out your sample. Like I just used with the smoking, how do we get kids to quit smoking? That's your sample, is children. And we're going to say children from 13 to 18. So you don't want to get young kids. I mean, you might actually, it's probably better to get them to quit smoking when they're 5 and break those positive images of smoking then. But for the sake of this, you just need to winnow it down. Once again, you don't want to do people who are in their 60s who have been smoking for 20 years. You most likely can't get them to stop. You don't really want to do the people in their 30s because that's not the goal of your program. So you just want to winnow it down. It could be like specific groups of individuals based off of race, off of their creed, off of your religion. You're only interested in what the attitudes and beliefs of this group of people concerning capital punishment are. You know, it could be immigrants. It could be only people from the United States for multiple generations. It's your choice. It's what answer you want to answer. You just only want information from them. And it's okay to do that. It may seem like you're excluding other people, but that's why when you're writing your paper and your topic, you're telling specifically, this is what the group of Kenyan immigrants to the United States believe on capital punishment or something along that. You don't care about other people. You don't care about what Asian people believe about it at this stage. Later, you might care and be like, we believe this Kenyan population believes this. Let's compare this to the Cambodian population of immigrants and see if they follow suit too. And now you have a comparative analysis of two groups. It might take you multiple years to get this kind of done. That would be what we call a research agenda, where you've been doing a line of research that builds up over a decade or so to some grand theory or some grand thing, but you can do those types of things. You have to recruit them. There's multiple ways you can recruit samples. There's lists online. You can buy a list of everybody in Washington State who is a registered voter. You can get just what we call snowballing. You send an email out to Eunice, and then Eunice knows all of you guys, so she sends an email out to you, and we all say, forward this along to a person who might be interested in taking this survey. You know, that's called snowballing. You get one, and the snowball rolls down the hill until it's bigger. You specifically target a group like college students or high school students, so then you'd go to every high school in King County and say, hey, can I do research on your high school students? Blah, blah, blah. They either say yes or say no. They give you rules and regulations, like you can do it under these circumstances, but if it causes issues, you have to stop immediately. So be prepared for anything along those lines if you work with youth or children. Then you collect your data. It's a survey, so you give the survey to them and collect the data. It's an experiment. You record what happens after you put your intervention in place. You collect that data. And then you have to do the analyzing of the data. This is a bit technical and actually can be very hard to do, but never fail. If you're not a numbers or a statistics person, there's always a way around it. There's always Google and the internet, and be like, how do I run a regression? And it'll tell you how to do that step by step on Google, as you guys probably know how to fix your kitchen sink or anything along those lines. There are tons of YouTube videos that walk you through how to do analyzing data. So those resources are out there. And the last step is to present your findings. This is share with everybody what you found out. If it's quality improvement, you're giving it to your immediate supervisor who reports it up the chain to executive leadership, you know. If it's actual research, this is where publication comes in peer-reviewed journals. We'll talk about those later, but those can kind of be a handful. You have multiple steps to jump over in order to get this information out there. But the reason that these steps are in place is to ensure that the information you're putting out there is accurate, truthful, and transparent. It's to make sure that everything is above board and that your results can be replicated. That means someone else in Colorado can do the exact same study I did here in Washington. They should get the same results that I got here. If they don't, that means there's something different between either my sample or my procedure or something that changed those results, and we need to know what that is so that we can address that for the future. That would be finding the gap. So that's always good news for there. That's the research process. That can take you multiple years, or you can get it done in a few weeks. So it just depends on every step and how much planning you have done and time management skills. When we talk about research, there's like hard and fast lines. There's qualitative versus quantitative. And you can think of it based off of its the base word there, quality versus quantity, which is counting. Qualitative asks the why question. We look at observations, we look at symbols, we look at words. If you were to do an investigation on everything that was written about the Gospels of Jesus through everything that's been written over the course of history, you're actually doing a qualitative study. Looking into the written word, you're looking for specific symbols and specific themes and words of that nature. You observe and interpret. So some of these would be like you're interested on what kinds of foods that single mothers buy at the grocery store. So you just go hang out in the produce department at Walmart and you with a little notepad and you make notes. and you say, oh, she bought salad, she bought oranges, bananas, blah, blah, blah. This person bought this and this. You're just observing those. And those are completely legal. They're called ethnological observations. And so you're basically looking at a culture or a small group and see how they interact without them knowing there's a researcher there. Because if there's a researcher standing there and I'm watching you and I'm telling all of you, I'm watching you for your behavior, and at the end of my discussion, I'm going to give you a summation of what I saw, you're going to be on your best behavior. You're going to be nodding politely. You're not going to droop your eyes. You're going to act super interested in what I have to say. But if you didn't know I was watching you from the secret camera, you would just go about your normal thing. And that's actually what we want from research. We want you to do your normal thing. It's called social desirability. You will do whatever the social norms or ethical concerns say because you don't want to appear not to follow the suit. So you will always do what is socially desirable or socially acceptable. When you analyze qualitative data, you just group it all together and you're looking for common themes. It's a lengthy process, but it gives you good, robust information. You can't get it always that way from just doing a survey, because a survey has a specific, written out with specific responses, and everything's not so specific. It's not black and white. There's so many shades of gray, and it's always determinant on every single individual's social determinants, where you came from, where you grew up, how old you are, what kind of background you have, what your family life was like, what your medical history is. All of that changes your perceptions of every single thing. Not one of us has the same exact belief or attitude towards a topic in this room, because there's probably 45 people. There's going to be 45 different perspectives on the same exact topic. And that's what makes humanity great, right? Because we're all part of this huge cosmic thing where we're like, yes, all of us together makes what truth, capital T. On the other hand, quantitative data answers how many. Like, how many degrees did the Earth rise last year? How many people attended this? How many people did that? Use numbers always. You run statistics always. You measure things and then you test it to make sure that it's accurate. And you are always using statistical analysis. The most common research methodologies that we'll use are experiments. Primary, for you guys' information, primary versus secondary research. Primary research is where the person who's conducting the research collects the data themselves. Secondary is where someone else collected the data and you're accessing their data. So there's you can see that it could be on either which one's there. But experiments, you guys all know what those are. You've seen them on TV. You've probably heard about them. We use them to test cause and effect. You cannot tell cause and effect from a survey. Just because a group of individuals believe this or whatever does not give you a cause, does not lead to an effect. Causation does not equal to correlation either. The summer month of July, ice cream sales increase. You know what else increases in July? Murder rate. Why would those two increase at the same time in July? Do you think people are hurting each other for ice cream? They go to Baskin Robbins and just murder it. You took all the last orange sorbet. No, that's not what's causing that. The same way with the other way around. What's actually causing it? It's super hot. People buy lots of ice cream when it's hot. People are agitated when it's hot and their emotions run hot. So there's something else that's influencing them. They both don't go together. So you have to. That's why we do experiments to understand cause versus effect. A survey is we're looking at a population and we're looking at their attitudes, their beliefs, general characteristics. So we're just going to specifically ask them in a set of questions and get a whole bunch of people to answer it. In-depth interviews, I love doing those just because I like to talk to people. I like to hear your point of view and your experience. So you would sit down with someone for a couple of hours and you would have a preset questions, and you want to hit every question. But if your interviewee gets off on a tangent and wants to talk about something over here, you let them. You want them to be comfortable and you want them to be like open with you so that they will give you truthful, honestful answers. And then you kind of just get back to the thing and be like, that's a great input, but what do you think about this now? You know, and kind of switch gears smoothly so you get them back on track to answer your questions. But they have so much information and valuable experiences. You want to get all of that you possibly can. So in-depth interviews are a way to go. In-depth interviews and focus groups are very similar, but focus groups use multiple people. So you'd get like 6 people of the same characteristics, single mothers, or suburban housewives, or immigrants, or something together, and then you ask those questions. The reason that they're different and you should use them in different experiences is because when you're in a group with other people, that social desirability thing I told you about earlier, that will lead you to actually kind of go with the beliefs of the group. If you're all in a group of the same political ideology, say independence or whatever, they're all going to bounce off of each other because they don't want to seem like the them of the us and them. They don't want to say something that make the others look at them sideways or be like, So they will give you kind of biased and slanted information. So focus groups have their place, as do in-depth interviews. Observational. That's what I was describing when we were talking about what people buy at the grocery store and you just watch them. This gives you a pretty of how something happens in the natural setting. Ethnographies are the same kinds of ways you would sit and hang out with think about anthropologists and missionaries who go to Samoa and spend like 10 years in Samoa just to understand how their family lives are and attachment. Those are what ethnographies are. You embed yourself in a specific culture or a group in order to fully understand it. Most of the time, you will adopt their cultures, you will adopt their language, you will do everything you possibly can to become part of that group so that you can understand everything that's going on from their point of view. The literature review I described earlier is just going through all of the known knowledge about a topic to make sure you know everything about it. So my research is obesity prevention. I can guarantee you I've read thousands of books on obesity prevention, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of journal articles. I know every author in the United States who publishes. Every week I get an announcement from every journal I've ever published in. You might be interested in this, Kit, read this new thing about this. So basically, once you get into an academic or a research thing, your research topics are basically your subject matter. You become a subject matter expert in that forever. You will always know about obesity prevention and what the determinants that cause people to be obese and et cetera, and you will it'll be the same whenever you guys do it too. Records reviews are relevant for like Eunice and I, and our kind of job is everybody collects data, like literally phones galore and laptops. All the companies who own those collect so much metadata about us, and it's all there. You just have to access it, and then now you just are going through their records. So this is a good example of what a secondary data analysis is. Someone else collected that, and now you're just accessing it and assessing it. Case study is very specific, and these are usually used for, let's say, psychology and sociology. One individual in the whole entire world has this one particular peculiar patterns of behaviors. So as the researcher, you watch them, you get involved with them, you talk to them, you use all these other techniques here, and you build a case study because there's not just one person in the whole world that acts this way. There's probably a couple hundred, maybe if it's very rare, but in order to identify those people, you need to do a case study first to see what those determinant factors are that would lead to that behavior. So those are very helpful whenever the sample can be too large or we're looking for very specific things. Quickly about statistics. Now, in the news and in the media, you will hear statistics say this, or you'll hear someone talk about 60% of people who drive without their seatbelts will hurt themselves. And people think those are statistics. Those are statistics, but what they're actually called is descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics look at no cause, no relationship, no correlation. It doesn't do any of that. descriptive statistics, only concern themselves of what is actually there, numbers, a percentage, just to help describe. It's not used to do anything except for to organize and show your results in a meaningful way. You can use them to describe the situation. It explains already known data, and you have heard things like mean, median, mode, variance, standard deviation. All of that stuff is descriptive statistics. Like if a person answers 1 to 5, how likely are you to go to this store again if they started carrying this brand of food? 5, very likely. 1, not likely at all. Central tendencies and variabilities, like would look at what the mean is. Most people said 3.3. The mode, what was the most reoccurring? 3. What would be the standard deviation is how frequently from 3.3 they are. Like if they go to 4 or 5, what's the percentage of people who would do that? Variance is how variable everybody in your group. Say you had 100 people, even though the mean is 3.3, did most people actually say 3.3, and how much variance is in their answers? On the other hand, inferential statistics, these are where you get into cause and effect. This is where we talk about regressions and looking at correlations. You compare data together and you test them. There's a whole bunch of things where you take, okay, back up just a little bit on how these work. So in the United States, we have 350 million people, give or take, right? That's called the population. It is infeasible to get a survey from all 350 million people. It would not work. You could not do it. So what you need to do is take a sample of that. A sample is going to be a small proportion of what all of those number of people are that actually has the same mixture of the original population. If the African American population in the United States is 17%, that means your sample has to have 17% African Americans. Asians are at 3%. Homosexuals are at 1%. You need to have all these groups in this because it has to reflect what American society is. Now imagine we did it at the world level. How could you possibly do that at a world level? You could not get every single person in the world to take a survey, so you're going to have to break it down by percentages. There's X amount of Chinese people. There's X amount of people from India and Bangladesh. You need to have that exactly proportionate. And then now that you have your sample, you can literally say, what I find inside of my research is generalizable to the whole entire population. So it would be the same with gender. Male and females are about 50-50. There's actually 55% females and 45% males. So you need to make sure you have a little bit more females than males. You need to look at people's incomes. You need to have people who have low incomes are 40% in the United States. Middle is another 50-something, and then high income is 10%. You need to make sure you have those. How do you get a billionaire to answer your survey? They're not. So basically at some stage you're going to have to say it's mostly representative, but I am missing this group of people. You can also get estimation of parameters. You test a hypothesis. Under this situation, this will occur, and you say yes or no. All of these have to be done with statistical analysis, which usually uses a program, a statistics program. There's many of them out there. A lot of them are free. You can just Google free statistics programs. There's always videos and tutorials on how to use them. And when we look at significance levels, what we have as a standard in society, we have established a level of 0.05. This is a confidence interval. What we are saying is I am 95% confident that these results are accurate. And so when we run a statistics level, you can see it can go all the way to 0.001. I am 99.9% confident that these results are accurate, that these findings are true. And so you can see going all the way down to 0.25. So anything that is that, we are 95% confident. Below that, we're not going to actually accept it. We're going to say, oh, there's too many variables. It should be a lot more, have less error in there. So basically, soft sciences. These are humanities. This is where all of it, because I have communication degree, economics follows into this, all of it. There's this division, that qualitative, quantitative thing. It kind of follows the same with hard sciences, which are mathematics, medicine, things along those lines that measure specific temperatures and weight and very specific numbers. They look down on, if you will, soft sciences because we have to go things in a psychological way. What is love? How do we measure love? You know, we know it's chemicals in the brain. That's all hard science stuff, but that's not all that's love. Love also has these components of your social interactions, your personal interactions, the psychology of you and your partner and your family. All that stuff has to be measured, right? You can't do that with taking a thermometer out and sticking it next to your wife. How much do you love me? It doesn't work like that. They kind of look down on it. So the social sciences give you the 0.5. And so but hard sciences give you the 0.001. If we're doing testing on medication or testing on insulin or something, they are not going to accept 95% confident under any circumstances. 95% of the people, or 5% of the American population, is millions of people who could be harmed from that medication if we didn't do 99.9% confident. So that's the difference on those. Generally speaking, though, I think most of everyone in here for research-wise would be doing soft sciences or humanity-wise, and it would be 0.005. But you can see what happens here. This is a joke because this is what happens with anyone who's run statistics. You run your things, you know you're looking for 0.05 and it says 0.052. And you're like, oh no, what is wrong? Why am I so close? And then you have to go find what it could be, a different variable. So that was basically research fundamentals. As I said, every single one of those topics can be discussed in a whole entire seminar, and I've literally had like 4 or 5 classes on research methodologies throughout my higher education degree. So if you're just starting, yay, you're going to have great fun. If you're working on, you're like second year or third year PhD, you're like, oh my gosh, I've heard this so many times. But basically what will happen as you start to move up, every single year you're going to build on it. Your first year, your master's, you're just going to kind of learn how to do literature reviews. You're not really going to be collecting data that much. You're just kind of getting into the movements of what you're supposed to doing. And that's kind of how they do your PhD program. That shows you that you know how to conduct research in an ethical and procedural way. And so that's kind of what the PhD culminates in, is research on a specific topic. But let's talk about some research ethics that go into them. What are ethics and why do we even have them when it comes to research? Well, basically, when we do research, we mainly care about the individuals we're doing research on. This could be your subjects, the people you're doing a survey on. You could be collecting data from pregnant women in prisons. And so your ultimate goal is their welfare. You want to make sure they are safe, they are comfortable, they have rights. Even if they are prisoners, they still have rights, and you do not trample on them. You cannot take that stuff away from them. Why is it this way? Well, because of course, human nature is that we're not very nice to one another, especially the us versus them thing. So there have been horrendous experiments in our history of the world in which we have taken advantage of people. One of the main ones is Nazi human experiments. Atrocious. Just the things that they did were not based in medicine or science. They conducted horrible experiments that disfigured people, made them disabled for life, and they couldn't do anything about it. They had to be involved in it. They couldn't say no, they couldn't bow out or anything like that. And then, so following that, what happened was we set up in the whole world, what you have to, these are the bare minimum of research requirements so that people can say no. They can not be hurt for someone else's gratification. And another example in the United States is the Tuskegee syphilis study. It's been told a million times, but basically what happened was they found 400 African American males who had syphilis, and then didn't give them a treatment for over 40 years, even though the treatment was available, because they wanted to study the long-term effects on what syphilis did to the people's brains. And yes, literally, and the treatment was available. People who were outside of the study could get the treatment in their community. That's what happened when syphilis is left untreated. 150 of those 400 African American males died in the name of this study for no reason, because there was no protections. So now what has happened is we have the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, when we actually have a federal rule, and it is called 45 CFR Part 46. And this gives these are the bare minimum at the federal level on how to protect people. Now, please note that there are actually state rules underneath of that. And then please note underneath of that, if you work for a university or an affiliation, there's even more rules there. So we don't really just let people do research willy-nilly anymore. We have a very standard procedure that you will follow these rules to prevent any more of these tragedies. Because if we didn't, those tragedies would continue. One of the main things that we need to do when we're looking at research ethics and considering what we should do is we have to assess risk. And when we talk about risk, it could be that risk like I was describing with those Nazi experimentations. That's a risk that they should have been like, oh, this is way too costly. But it could be like something as minor as psychological risk. You've got someone feeling bad about themselves, or they have some cognitive dissonance with their attitudes and beliefs. It could also include privacy. I'll go into what those definitions of privacy and confidentiality, but privacy means you as a person get to determine how your information is shared and under what circumstances. Not the researcher. The researcher doesn't get to say, oh, I'll just give your information out. And the confidentiality breaches are the actual data that pertains you. This line of information in my Excel spreadsheet has all of KIT's attitudes and beliefs and all of that stuff. If that was leaked out somewhere, it could damage my reputation, or it could cause people to, I don't know, what's been happening, the swatting or whatever, where people are fake calling the FBI and SWAT teams to invade someone's house. That's all because of confidentiality breaches. Someone got someone's home address and phone number from some list somewhere and are now doing illegal activity towards them. So we have to prevent that. The study itself can have physical or psychological harms. When I also did a lot of research that was called psychosocial research, and we looked at physiology, how your body actually responds, like sweat rates, heart rates, and stuff like that. So I would get people on treadmills and have them do activities and stuff like that. Well, if they're not in the best health, they could have a myocardial infarction and fall over on your treadmill in the middle of your study, or any numerous things. So there are physical risks that can be involved, but if there's a survey, there's not really a physical risk. You might get a headache if it's on a computer, or a paper cut if it's in paper, but there could be psychological risk. Say you're talking about a very sensitive topic. Like discrimination, harassment, like that. That kind of asking those questions can get people in their feelings, and it can make people not want to do your study. They'll want to stop. It can make them agitated. It can make them combative with your researchers. There's a whole bunch of things that psychology can have people do. So you have to consider those risks, and you need to balance it between, is the benefit of what I need to know about this discrimination and harassment worth the pain that the mental anguish I'm going to cause these people? And if your answer is no, then you shouldn't do it. Or you should change your questions and make them less invasive, Risk can be balanced. Direct benefits to the subject should be more than the risk that can. But once again, we do need to contribute to generalizable knowledge. So now it's an ethical concern. How much risk am I willing to put this group of people through in order to get the answers that we need to know? Conflict of interest is another area of concern for ethics. Here, it can take many forms. It could be financial. You get a grant from the government. They give you $500 million to conduct your study. You just start throwing money out everywhere. I'm going to give you $50 and an Amazon gift card if you participate in my study. At some stage, you can give too much money to a person, and they will just only involve themselves for that money. Right? So that could be a conflict of interest. You could also work for a private company who is producing an Alzheimer's cure medication, and they are paying your $250,000 a year salary, and now you're going to try to get a grant from the government, and you're going to try to say that you aren't influenced by the people who are paying your position. So you have to report these conflicts of interest. There's specific forms that you have to say to them. It could be pressure to publish. I was in academia before, and I left academia because every single day, every week, that's all that's talked about is publication. Publish or perish is the phrase that we call. It feeds into your tenure. It feeds into everything that your whole entire academic career will do. So that can change how they conduct an experiment, or maybe the results came in and they weren't what they wanted and they just spent 5 years collecting those data. They might fudge those numbers a little bit just to make it seem not as bad as it was, and who could tell, you know. There also could be professional commitments outside of your research, you know, what groups you belong to or anything like that. What you have to do with all conflicts of interest is report them. When you conduct research, with human subjects, you have to have institutional review board, which is it's a body who looks at all research to make sure that that all of these ethical concerns are addressed. And you have to tell them, oh, I work for this company and they pay my salary $4 million a year. So it might bias my opinion, it might not. I can't determine one way or the other. So always think about your conflicts of interest. Informed consent is a huge component. This is required by the federal regulation that I said. Informed consent, if you've taken a survey before, it's usually at the very beginning, and it's just like, this survey is for this reason. It'll take you this long. Do you consent to participate? And you usually click yes, or I agree, or go forward. What is required by law are two parts. The information, you have to give it to the subjects. They have to be able to read it themselves. If you're in person, you're collecting an experiment, it's usually a physical document that they take with them so they can read it later. It has to be understandable. The average American only reads at an 8th grade reading level. So you cannot use jargon and high-level, higher education language inside of your consent form. You need to write it like you're writing for a middle schooler, which is fine. You just basically reduce everything down and make sure it's understandable. What I usually do is have my little nibblings read it, you know, and they're in middle school, and be like, does this make sense to you? Or circle the words you don't understand for me, and I'll try to find a synonym for them. Information, a reasonable person is the actual language in the law, would have to make an informed decision on whether to participate or not. A reasonable person would be someone who has control of all their mental facilities, who has control of all of their body facilities, ambulatory and such. Because if you're disabled from like the neck down, you might agree to participate in a study because they lead you to believe you're a very limited person and they need your input. And so it kind of falls under coercion. The main thing about participation in research is voluntary. The person can say no. They can say yes and start and halfway through and say no and want to stop. You have to let them. You cannot force them to keep going. You cannot make them do anything that you want. Every question has to be able to be skipped. So when you make a survey on the computer, if you didn't know this, you can just push forward. You do not have to answer that question by law. So all of that and you have to tell the subject that your participation is voluntary. You can quit at any time. You will not receive any punishment or retaliation for quitting. We won't say anything. We'll say, have a great day. And if you do offer a reward and they quit halfway through, you still have to give them that $25 Amazon gift card too. Because that's against you cannot say you only get it if you finish this survey. That's against the law. So The last components of ethics that we should concern ourselves are privacy and confidentiality. Like I said, privacy is having control over the extent, timing, and circumstances of sharing oneself, like your information, your behavior, your intellect, all of that stuff with others. That is your choice, no one else's choice. If you're married, it's not your partner's choice either. Your husband doesn't get to decide when the wife's information is shared or anything. So that is utmost. So that's about the person. Confidentiality is about the information you collected. And this is a convoluted definition here, but treatment of information that an individual has disclosed in a relationship of trust and with the expectation that it will not be divulged to others in ways that are inconsistent with the understanding of the original disclosure without permission. All legalese, but basically what it says is, in your informed consent, you said specifically, I'm going to share these results in an aggregated, non-identifiable way with these groups of people. I will try to publish this in publishing in journal articles and all of this together. You have to tell them that, and they're agreeing to it. You can't now just decide, oh, I'm going to share this with the government because the government asked for it, because it's not written in the informed consent. If you do that, you are now breaking the law. You've broken their confidentiality because they said you can share my information in a non-identifiable way with you at that presentation, but you didn't say you were going to give it to the government so they can track me. So you have to do these confidentiality and privacy to make sure that those are all above order. All right, so we're almost finished. Resources are our last bit here. So basically, when we start doing research, it's just like everything else. Practice makes perfect. No one ever picked up the violin and just started right off the bat being amazing at it. They've worked super hard for it. It's the same with researchers. In order to understand if research is done appropriately or if there are any problems with it, you need to read a lot of research papers, right? You have to read journal articles. You need to be involved in that. Like I said, I'm a subject matter expert in obesity prevention. I just read all the time. And so it would be the same with you. To get those are not necessarily easy. You can Google, you can say, I can give you the name of one of my publications and be like, here, read this, and it'll give you all the information you need. You put that into Google, it's going to tell you you can access it for $69.95 or something along those lines. You're like, what? For a few pages? No, that's ridiculous. So what we've done is researchers and other people in the world have created these websites here, and these are mostly all free. Like Google Scholar, when you put in your topic, obesity prevention for minors, it will give you everything because it's Google. It's going to give you the free stuff. It's going to give you the stuff you have to charge. But what I find to be helpful from that is if they are going to charge you, I'm going to take the title of that article and I'm going to put it into one of the other ones that are free. And I'm going to make my way down the list of all these until I find the free article. Because the article is free. It's somewhere out there. You just need to find where it's free. It's tedious. I'm sorry, there's not a better way to do it, but that's the way you have to do all of these. Most of them have free access, so you can just go to PubMed or Google Scholar or JSTOR and type in what it is. I'm not sure about how you guys have a library system or not with this. Like when you at the university, you have access to all of these included in your admissions. I don't know if you guys have that or not, but this is a list of every single one that I use practically every single week. On all of these, you can set up alerts. So I want to see what new stuff comes out for obesity prevention, so I'm going to set up an alert on Google, and it'll give me an email and ding me and say, hey, did you read this? Yes or no? This next one are all kinds of computer softwares to help you with references and grammar. Grammar is a pain, it is difficult, and it's so much easier that as you're typing, this program will just specifically say, oh, that's whom, not who, or oh, that's the past participle, and it'll tell you how to correct it in real life. So Grammarly is one of the best tools that I find for writing grammar. Zotero, EndNote, RefWorks, and Mendeley, those are for references. So when you're writing your dissertation, I think I had maybe 150, 200 articles that I referenced inside of there. So you have one of two choices. You can keep every single journal article in a folder, which I did. But then what I did after that is load all of those into Zotero for me. And ta-da, now when you're typing and you already know that Parrish in 1999 said that, you can just start your parentheses and type Parrish. It'll automatically be like, are you looking for this one? And plug it in for you. And you can just be like, yes. So that's helpful. EndNote, RefWorks, they all work the exact same way. What also you can do is store them there, and then you can share them with other users. So that article that you couldn't find by going through all of there, go to your Zotero account and type it in and see if it's there. Someone else shared it for everyone else to use there. Building surveys. These Question Pro, Qualtrics, SurveyMonkey, or Survey Gizmo, and Google Forms. So you do not need to pay for building Qualtrics. You would have to pay for, but you don't have to pay to build a survey to give out to people. There's free stuff online and you can fill them. Google Forms, pretty much everyone might have a Google account. It's right there. It helps you randomize questions, gives you your data and analytics back. Question Pro is actually a really cool program. It's more towards, you can go to social media, you could build your survey, then host it on social medias, then on the platform it'll collect the data automatically for you and then give you a nice succinct report. And it'll actually be like, hey, you're not doing so good on Twitter, let's do a couple more hits on Twitter to see if we can increase our numbers there, or any of the other things. So that's a really good tool to help you do everything at once, like all of the management and everything. The last ones, I'm not sure if anyone here will be interested in, but as I was talking about all data, or all companies collect data, basically you can scrap data, pull data from the web. Basically you can just have these programs look for every single time the word obesity was said on the internet. It could be a Reddit, it could be on Twitter, it could be an actual book, it could be news stories, it could be anything. And you set these programs to say, give me everything that's ever said about obesity online. You're going to get millions and millions of data. This is a good tool for what we call big data management. If you've not done that, you do have to have specialized software to run those data. So these are available. They're all free. They're very user-friendly. So if you do ever want to know, what is people saying on, I guess it's not Twitter anymore, what are people saying on X about immigration at the southern wall, you can pull literally every single tweet, or every X, you can pull every single thing that has been said about that from there, and then have this huge data set. When I'm looking for other things, Library of Congress is the biggest library in the United States, so why not check out what's there? Pretty much all books, journal articles, medical publications, all that stuff is there. I put the links inside of this, so when I share this with you, you can just click and it'll go right to the Library of Congress. Google Books is also another very good, helpful start there. It will interlink with Amazon and other book companies. So say it'll show you the prices of all the books and you can find a used version or the new version. It also, some of these books are free. Like you can go there and it'll actually have the entire book online for you to download in a PDF. Others will give you previews like the table of contents. Or maybe some introduction, and then you can scan through the table of contents and be like, oh, this book isn't actually relevant to me, I don't need it. Then you don't have to request it from your library. Science.gov, anything science related, med related, medical related, any of that, you can find all of those publications there. Digital Commons Network. With the rise of the internet and all these companies charging outlandish amounts of money for a journal article, lots of researchers got together and university practitioners and advocates of groups got together and was like, hey, let's make a free library of information. And so they started dumping things in there. Some of it's relevant, some of it's not. So that's one that I don't go to a whole bunch anymore. But when it first came out, I was enthralled. I'm like, yes, free everything, And so that's a really good thing. Last is a website, and this is from Himmelfarb. That's George Washington University. Himmelfarb Health Science Library. they have this resource, I don't have the internet, but it's called for early career researchers, and it's broken down into like 9 different tabs. How to write your first research paper, and it walks you through step by step. It should have this section. It should have this section. This is what you should do. How to publish that. Have a whole entire sheet on how to publish that. How to ask for author accreditation. How to create your research agenda. This basically assumes that someone from a bachelor's degree who was now all like, ooh, I wanted to be a researcher. This is how they like recommend to them to start your career, master's degree day 1, all the way until you're basically an established researcher. So there's lots of good tools that I've always recommended to my students whenever they're like, I think I'm going to turn to research now. So use all of those things, and all of that stuff together gives you everything you guys have access to. The other thing that would be really super nice is what's called city training. City training basically is it's a global initiative to give information about research and the bare minimums of ethics and all of that stuff. This problem with this training is you guys don't have access to it. I went and logged in, and I even put Trinity Baptist in there. There might be other keywords, so maybe if you look for us, like, because I saw you guys are under the umbrella of International, Trinity International, and I didn't know that then. But I think if you, it's free for Washington State employees and other, like if you're affiliated with a university, but it charges for you guys, but I don't know how much it charges. But these are exceptional training materials. It gives you everything I talked about today, but in a lot more detail. And it gets everybody ready and on the same page of everything ethics related when it comes to research, all of the rules. When you're done with it, I'd say it takes like 3 hours. I did mine over a couple of days, 3 or 4 hours. You're just well versed in all of the information. And like we at the hospital, basically if anyone works in quality or research, I'm always recommending get your city training, because they'll ask me a question that I'm like, it's there and present, right? Like it gives you so much information. It's very helpful. So if you guys could figure a way to set up an account, because you have enough students, generally speaking, there would be an institution level of IRB too, but you don't have one here, so you would still have to adhere to Washington State IRB. Basically, it's just an application where you fill out what you're doing, why you're doing it, what are the risks involved and benefits, and they'll say yes or no, and they give you that determination. That you can just Google Washington State IRB. They have very procedural steps on what to do, and Eunice, we have all this information at the Research Oversight Committee, so I'll share that with you when I get back to the office so you can easily, here's another link from KIT or whatever, if that sounds okay. All right, so that is my presentation about that. So what I was ideally hoping, but I don't know what time, is that we just talk about where we could do research with your topics. I know it's difficult to do some research whenever we're looking at things that are soft sciences, but one of my best friends, she was a Fulbright scholar from Jamaica, she did religious studies, and what she did was tons of experiments and tons of surveys on people who belong to the church and what their ideas and beliefs are. Not necessarily what are your ideas on or beliefs on abortion or anything like that, but more like gender roles within the house. You know, stuff that's not so obviously painted in the media, and just to see where in different subgroups of different religions too. She was very interested in the Catholic versus Protestant beliefs and how each of those drive different types of attitudes, beliefs, and even behaviors within inside of a community or in a house. So there are tons and tons of areas where you can combine theological work into human subject research and do quantitative too. But there's also a ripe entire whole world that you can do qualitatively. Like you can spend so much time in the written word, going through every word that is written and comparing it to what this philosopher said, or this historian, what this, and there's always another person who's got their dissertation before you, what this doctor has said and what he wrote in his dissertation about the same topic. So those are always available there. So I kind of wanted to like see what you guys thought about your topics, and if you had an interest on maybe bringing a research component to it that wasn't a literature review or records review, and how I could maybe give you some direction or advice on any of that stuff. So.
The question is on new people. What areas are you doing your research? Just like you mentioned, so that it can have an idea. Do you need a paper to write on?
Actually, I brought some.
Mention like your area of interest and where you do your research.
Yes.
You have the PhD class, please.
Divorce among the immigrants in the Washington state, in bracket, and Kent City.
The increase of votes from migrants?
The increase of divorce.
Oh, divorce.
Yeah, among the migrants.
That's a very
Washington
interesting study.
Yes.
So you can do a couple different ways. Because divorce records are actually public records, you can pull those from the state, and you can get every single divorce that has occurred in Kent, right? And then now you would need to go through and see if they were naturalized citizens or born citizens. And so you can do it that way. The other way that you can do is actually have survey. You can write a survey that you send out to people who have went through a divorce. The best way to recruit those people would be to do a snowball, like someone who went through one, or marriage counselors usually prevent divorce, so there might be someone where the counseling didn't necessarily work as well, and so they might be able to help you find your subject pool. So you could do either qualitative or quantitative. And ultimately, it would be a great research question just to see if the attitudes towards divorce shift as they come to the United States. Because, I would be led to believe that ideas of divorce are more common in the United States than they are in other cultures, because we're just like, oh, there's a million fish in the sea. So that would be a great research project, yes.
Somebody else?
Yeah. My area is, I'm writing on an analytical study on the occupational stress among clergy. And I'm focusing mainly the Kent, urban and federal area.
Do you have a specific occupations you'd need to be interested in?
I say the occupational stress.
Yeah, but
among clergy. Among clergy or church ministers.
Okay, yes. That would be so you would definitely need to do a survey for yours.
Okay.
And you would have to basically Google to find if anyone has done anything about stress on clergy members.
Okay.
You might find a lot more of that information on clergy's members who do ministry work in underdeveloped nations. You might also find a lot of research done with those who might have been in the military, like military clergy or people who respond to any kind of crises. They might have done a lot more research on that. And then you would get your basis knowledge on what we know for these types of people, and it's probably just a similar stress for other clergy members too. And you would extrapolate there. That's a really good topic too. In Kent. Yes, hi.
Okay, my paper is Authentic Christianity and its Impact on the Parishioners.
What was the first phrase?
Authentic Christianity and its impact on the parishioners.
I think that's going to have to be a survey too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there would be any records review, but you do a very similar thing. You would go and search through all of the list of stuff to see what has been done. And if there is not a survey that's done in these topics, that kind of gives you like free reign. It's almost like you hit the jackpot when it comes to research. Like you're like, oh my gosh, no one has done this topic before. You kind of get to design and make what you think is relevant. But what you should do when you do those kinds of things is start out with those in-depth interviews and those focus groups and ask some people who are in that situation. That way you aren't starting from blank. You don't want to recreate the wheel. You kind of want to have a little bit of educated guess behind it. And so you do some of those things first, and that'll give you a good start on what you should include in your survey. Good topic.
Yeah, I'm doing a research paper on leadership and church management in the 21st century.
Okay. So that sounds like it can be both, a combination of like this, because there's got to be some church management and leadership papers, and I'm sure someone who has a PhD in theology has done that. So do that record search and see what kind of procedures are in place currently, and or if you're looking specifically at Baptist or something, and what they might do in the conventions or whatnot, and then contribute that out to maybe a survey and ask, people that who work in the community and not at a national level, Good topics. These are great topics. Yeah. Hi.
Hi. Topic is about strategic church planning and congregants' rights.
Strategy planning and what?
Congregants' rights.
Ooh. That's a great topic. I think you're going to have to do a records review too to see what kind of strategy plannings are currently in place. And congregants' rights. That's very interesting. Very interesting. I'm sorry, I can't give you any advice on that one because I'm thinking like, are there any kind of research on that? I haven't heard anything. You might have hit the jackpot with that one there. That was a good topic. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing a relationship between selected self-care practices and level of burnout among registered practicing counselors in Nairobi.
In Nairobi?
Yeah.
So what you might have to do is find similar research that's occurred in the United States or Europe and then culturally adapt it to Nairobi, because obviously they won't be the same, but religious oriented. And I'll see what I can pull for you and send it along with Eunice too. Media, I just need to make a note of teens. Great project though. I think you'll really enjoy it. Teen social media.
Do we have any master's students who want to?
Media literacy too.
My topic is mental health disparities among minorities in the U.S.
Very good topic. You have two options with that as well. It's kind of a combination of doing a records review, because there will be information for even behavioral health. We have stuff in the state, and so you can request records at the national level or state level. You would just have to go to the appropriate department and request those, and it might take a few weeks. But pretty much every governmental office has a public request of information. And when they return it to you, it might be what's called redacted. And they're only going to give you relevant information they think is relevant for you. If they redact it too much and it's not usable, you just send another request to them and say that they took too much out and what you're looking for is there. That's a great topic. And then what you could correlate it with would be an actual survey for the individuals who belong to those groups to see if their own perceptions of the mental illness align with what is being, because the system itself looks and thinks that they know everything, and so they're like, this is the way it is. But that's not necessarily the way it is for people who have mental disorders. And so it would be great to correlate those together and be like, these are what the people with mental disorders in these minorities believe and feel about it, but this is what the government is saying about it, and they don't align, or they do align. And if they do align, that means the federal government is doing their job, right? But if they don't align, that means they're missing some very important step in there that you can help with public policy. So it's a great topic. That's like a PhD topic right there. So it's like, these are great.
Mine is on suicide and ideation.
Okay.
Among the youth between 14 and 25 years.
Just all groups too?
Between 14 and 25.
I meant more like, did you want to look at minority groups or immigrants or just all United adolescents?
Yes, yes.
That's a very good topic, and it would be very timely and important because suicide ideation is almost glorified on social media in a way. It's not like promoted or anything, but it's not seen as it's as detrimental to a person's mental health as it should be. So I think this would be a very important topic for you to cover. I think you should also include a social media component to it too, because when we deal with adolescents and teens, 80% of their lives are in front of a computer, and what they see there is just as important on shaping their attitudes and beliefs as being around at church or being at home or being in their communities. So I think it'd be really good for you to incorporate that too. And it could be just questions, something along the lines of, have any of your friends ever talked about suicide on social media? Do you know anyone who's committed suicide? And just try to get their attitudes and beliefs around that too. So there should be some work on standard without the social media component. So that would be just using your regular lit review. But I think that if you add that social media component in there, that you could have a really, really good project. So great topics. Yeah.
So mine, I'm finding a topic. So doing research how single mom balance work, kids in the shelter.
She's right there with you. How can I do a research project off of my bundle of love and joy? I have all the experience right here.
Doing research.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's a very good topic because it is becoming standard in the United States that we try to provide some kind of childcare with our jobs, not just drop a kid off somewhere and make it manageable and affordable, right?
Yes.
And so I think that would be a great topic on how you could put those together. Surveys, another cool thing that you could do would be in-depth interviews where you sat down with a lot of people and you just talked to them and how they felt about it. That would be a really good topic, I think. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good. You guys these are high quality, good stuff, guys. Anybody else? Are there any instructors who want to get another PhD or get another master's? Have you been tortured enough yet? Because as a research advocate, we always want people to come back and do more research because you have the skills in place, you already know what you're doing, and it's helpful if you can continue that work. But yeah.
I want to do a research but in Kenya on trauma-informed care among the military who have gone for peacekeeping missions and now they are back. Are they getting trauma-informed care after going to the UN missions?
That's a great topic. They should have it before they go and after they return too, to make sure that trauma-informed care actually helped with their compassion fatigue and all their burnout and stuff of that nature. But I would not be surprised if you do find a lot of burnout from them and a lot of maybe even negative attitudes towards. So I would, when you build it, I have a trauma-informed care survey, already that's been pretty much validated by research. I can share that with you. And what I would combine with that too is additional questions that get to their specific experiences, like how, because it's militarized, whenever these trauma-informed care surveys are usually for facilities or hospitals and prisons. So it would be great to get it from a perspective that didn't concern any kind of institutionalized subject pool. Because in a way, these individuals get to lead. They have the resources and the ability to do something that our patients can't do themselves. So this, I think it would be a very good thing. So I will share that. I'm going to write that too. Trauma-informed care survey. Yes. For Eunice. Hi.
I think this is slightly almost a little personal. But still are related with your field. I am a psychology associate working with DSHS.
Okay.
And I want to benefit some of these programs, CITI, and what other programs could you recommend?
Like city training?
Yes.
Will you repeat your question again? Sorry.
I am a psychology associate. What would you recommend for me to advance? I need to do something that helps me to advance in my line.
Can I ask, I don't really know what
He's taking food from my mouth because I was going to introduce you to him. Yeah, he's working at the Olympic.
At the Olympic Heritage?
Yeah, so he's part of us.
But the psych associate, what is that, a master's degree?
Yes.
Okay, and so in order to become a psychologist, you now have to get your PhD?
Uh-huh.
So what interests you on working with patients at the hospital? Because you could have went clinical or private and did all of that stuff. What drew you to working with patients at the hospital or, BHA at the state level?
Well, because my doctorate is in clinical counseling.
And so that's what pulled you, and that was the biggest, easiest clinical pool that you can get into?
Yes.
What other kinds of research topics do you like to do, though?
Behavioral.
Like concerning their behaviors. Is it antecedent or before something happens or after?
Before.
Before is what you're interested in.
Uh-huh.
So basically, you have a lot of, you have a whole prime area of what you can do. And what you should do is, because you have them as a subject pool, all of those individuals, we have procedures in place at the state level where you can access them and do a survey with them, and you can pull the records too. So they have all records on assaults or falls or any of that stuff. And you can correlate those information on assaults, say, because usually when we look at behaviors, we're looking at preventing maladaptive behaviors. So one of those is aggression. And so you're trying to prevent aggressive behaviors. And so you can go ahead and pull all of their data and have access to their subject pool. And then it makes your life so much easier because you don't have to recruit those individuals, because it's a very difficult time to recruit individuals who are vulnerable populations,
Right.
But you can definitely do your PhD using both of those methods there. So.
I think mostly what he was asking is the training. Remember the training?
Oh, the city training.
The city training.
Are you in a program outside of this one? Are you in a UW or anything of their programs? So what I'm working with Eunice, and we're gonna try to get it set up where all of you guys can have free access to the city training. But if we can't get that set up, then unfortunately what you need to do is pay the amount to do the training. And I did not know how much that costs, so I'm sorry. Yeah, so I will connect with her and we'll try to get everything set up so that you can. Wait, you're a state employee. All you have to do, I will give you the email. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I was thinking around in a circle and not thinking. As a state employee, you can just go to the website and you put in Washington State employees into your organization, and it'll automatically give you access to both of them.
So for students who are, because we have students who are state employees, can they do that?
Yes, absolutely. I forget that some of you would have worked for the state. So yes, just on the website too, I'll make sure. Yes, and they can do that.
After becoming a teen mother, and how do you maintain your focus, the real goal for your life?
So your project is going to be intervention, right? Because it's a very sensitive topic, and so even if there were surveys done on teen mothers, I'd be hesitant to accept everything that comes out of them because they're going to be very socially affected, depending on which communities they belong to. It's kind of frowned upon in the United States to get pregnant, before you're married, A, and at a very young age, B. So I think the best way would be to get a group of them together, and it would be individual, in depth. I wouldn't necessarily do them in a focus group, do one-on-one, and then you just combine all that information together and see where it starts. Are you interested in a specific immigrants or anything of that nature, or just all teenagers who get pregnant in the United States?
Immigrants
mostly. So that even adds that extra layer on top of it because of the cultural beliefs between, say, Africa or whatever, and here it might not be frowned upon. I'm not sure, I'm just guessing. It might not be frowned upon to start your family earlier in Africa than it is here. Because in the United States, we were like, go to college, do this, get money and save and get a house before you have a family. Which unfortunately doesn't always work out for people because they end up 40 and just starting their lives, but that would be a great topic to do. Yeah. Is there anything else? Good. Anybody else? Yeah.
I have a personal.
You are watching Pacific Waves Television, USA, a place of nourishment.
Pacific Waves TV. Nenyuge na neta. Shiaraya. Pacific. Mshewa ikeno.
Pacific Waves Radio.
Ayage makaro merera. Pacific Waves TV. Wako ne Pacific Waves TV.